All right, ready for a deep dive into something you usually only find in, like, epic stories? The Chosen One.
Hmm. Interesting.
But we're not talking, Luke Skywalker or Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Right.
We're going to look at how this Chosen One idea shows up in self-help and spirituality.
Yeah, what's interesting is it's less about fighting like cosmic evil and more about finding your own personal mission,
Yeah.
your own path.
Exactly. And our guide for this deep dive is this piece called You Are Chosen, 9 Secrets You Must Never Share.
Okay.
So before we really jump in, think about this.
Hmm.
Have you ever felt like there's something specific you're meant to do in this life? Like
Yeah.
a calling just for you?
Hmm.
This deep dive might really hit home for you.
The chosen one is everywhere in our culture,
Yeah.
right? From ancient myths to those blockbuster movies we all love.
Yeah.
But this source, it kind of flips the script.
Right, right,
It's not about being better than everyone else or achieving some big public destiny.
right. It's not about that superhero spotlight. It's way more personal. It's like saying each of us has a unique piece of this giant puzzle, and only WE have that piece.
And that actually resonates with a lot of spiritual traditions.
Yeah.
Many of them emphasize finding your specific role,
Mm-hmm.
your dharma, your purpose.
Yeah.
It's about contributing what only you can.
Okay, so then while the secrecy, this source is like really big on keeping these 9 secrets hush-hush.
Well, it brings up a fascinating psychological point.
Okay.
Feeling chosen,
Mm-hmm.
there can be a downside to that.
Okay.
It can lead to pressure, feeling isolated, even heavy self-doubt.
Whoa, yeah.
Yeah.
Like you feel special, but then also like, wait, am I actually up to this?
Exactly.
I've definitely felt that pressure in my own life, especially with my career. Like, am I living up to my potential? Am I making a real difference? What about you?
Oh, definitely. I think it's a common human experience,
Mhm.
to grapple with those expectations, whether they're self-imposed or coming from other people. And finding healthy ways to cope is essential, especially when you're going after a purpose that feels so personal.
Okay, so let's break down these 9 secrets. Get into it.
Okay.
They're at the heart of this You Are Chosen piece.
Mm-hmm.
The first one is about the origin of your calling.
Yeah.
Those moments or revelations that set you on your path.
Yeah.
And the source says to keep this close, guard it from doubt or misinterpretation.
That reminds me of Brene Brown's work on vulnerability.
Oh, interesting.
Sharing something deeply personal, especially when it's still fragile, you really have to choose the right people, the people who can hold that space for you without judgment.
So it's not about being secretive just to be secretive, but more about like being careful who you share with.
Exactly. And that connects with a lot of spiritual teachings on discernment.
Right.
It's about recognizing that not everyone is ready to hear certain truths.
Okay, secret number 2 builds on this idea of protection.
Mm.
It says to avoid giving away the specifics of your mission too early. It's like, don't spill the beans before they're cooked.
Yeah.
What's the logic behind that?
I think it speaks to the power of intentionality.
Yeah.
There's a strategic element to keeping your plans under wraps, let them gain momentum before putting them out there to potential challenges or distractions.
All right, secret number 3 gets a little mystical. It says, we shouldn't totally reveal our spiritual abilities or practices, especially if people might, be skeptical or judge.
Yeah.
It suggests focusing on the positive stuff,
Right.
like healing or wisdom, without necessarily explaining the methods.
This actually echoes practices found in a lot of different esoteric traditions, like certain branches of yoga or meditation.
Huh,
The emphasis is on the results of the practice, not the techniques themselves.
okay.
Sometimes, trying to explain the how can actually hinder understanding, especially for someone outside of that tradition.
Interesting. So it's like you can't always put those things into words.
Exactly.
And the 4th secret is all about protecting the people who guide or mentor us, the people who support us on our spiritual journey.
Yeah.
Why be so secretive about that?
It's about respecting their privacy and the sanctity of those relationships,
Right.
which makes sense, especially if their practices or beliefs fall outside of what's considered mainstream.
Okay.
Imagine a spiritual teacher who helps tons of people, but their family has no idea about this side of them.
Right.
It's about protecting that sacred space.
So it's like acknowledging that these relationships are on a different level, a level that not everyone's going to understand.
Exactly.
Okay, on to secret number 5. This one is about the challenges and trials we face on any path.
Right. The source cautions against openly sharing your struggles while you're still in the middle of them.
Mm-hmm.
It suggests that doing so can sometimes backfire, especially if the people you're confiding in aren't on the same page spiritually.
Okay.
They might offer advice that, while well-intentioned, could actually pull you off course.
So it's about choosing who you turn to for support when things are tough.
That's it. It comes down to discernment, right?
Okay.
Choosing those who can offer support that aligns with your path. Those who can hold space for you without trying to fix you or give unwanted advice.
I've been there where sharing a problem just leads to more stress because the other person just didn't get it. But
Exactly.
their advice wasn't bad, but it wasn't helpful.
And sometimes just talking about a struggle can actually give it more power.
Oh, interesting.
It's like you're giving a voice to the doubt and the fear, and that can make those feelings even stronger.
So maybe it's about being aware of where we put our energy, especially when we're feeling vulnerable.
I think that's key. It's not about isolation, but about intentional connection.
Okay, secret number 6. It's about transformative experiences.
Okay.
Those moments of deep realization or change. The source says to share these carefully, that broadcasting them can take away their power. Why would that be?
That reminds me of the concept of mana in Polynesian culture.
Interesting.
It's a spiritual life force that can be weakened by sharing it carelessly. The idea is that some experiences have a sacred energy that is best protected through respect and discretion.
So it's like, don't wear out the magic by putting it on display for everyone.
Exactly. It's about honoring the sacredness of our inner experiences.
All right, on to secret number 7. This one says to not reveal the timeline of your mission.
Right. Trust the process.
Yeah, don't rush things just to meet someone else's expectations.
There's wisdom in recognizing that spiritual growth often works on a different time scale than our everyday lives. It's not always linear or predictable.
Right, it's like comparing a blooming flower to a microwave dinner.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
You can't force a flower to open faster, and sometimes you can't rush the unfolding of your own path.
Exactly. Patience and trust are key.
And talking about time, secret number 8 warns against getting too specific with predictions about the future, whether they're from prophecies or insights you've had.
The source emphasizes how fluid the future is, reminding us that things are always changing. Getting too attached to specific outcomes can make us rigid, and that can block us from adapting to new possibilities.
So it's about being open to the twists and turns of the journey.
Absolutely. Embrace the unknown and trust that the path will unfold as it's meant to.
Okay, we've reached the final secret, number 9, and it's the one with the most mystery around it.
Yeah.
It warns against sharing your deepest revelations about the divine or the universe. Why would something that profound need to be kept secret?
The source describes these revelations as deeply personal, maybe so unique to your connection with the divine that trying to put them into words for others could just lead to misunderstanding
Okay.
or even being ridiculed.
So they're like so sacred and personal that words can't do them justice.
That's a great way to put it.
Like, how do you explain the taste of chocolate to someone who's never had it?
Yeah, it's recognizing that some experiences are meant to be felt and known on a deeper level, a level beyond language.
Wow. Okay, so we've covered all 9 secrets, and honestly, I'm intrigued, but also a little wary. On the one hand, I get wanting to protect your inner world and being careful about who you open up to. But is there a risk in being too secretive? Could it lead to being isolated or not being accountable?
That's a really important question, and one we should explore more.
Yeah.
I think the key is finding the balance between honoring your own journey and recognizing when sharing can actually be beneficial
Okay.
for both yourself and the others.
All right, so we've got the basics. We talked about the idea of the chosen one, gone through the 9 secrets, and now we need to figure out what it all means for us.
Yeah.
For you listening, whether or not you feel like this chosen thing fits for you, are there lessons here about chasing your own goals and dreams?
Absolutely. I think the main message goes beyond any specific label.
Okay.
It's about realizing the power of intention and discernment when it comes to sharing our dreams, our goals, and even our struggles.
Right, and I'm curious to hear about a time when you had to make a tough call about whether or not to share something important to you. Like, did you ever almost tell someone about a project or dream and then stop yourself?
You know what I have? I was working on this book proposal, something I was, so passionate about.
Okay.
And I almost shared it with another writer, someone I really admired. But something stopped me.
What stopped you? Was it like one of these secrets we're talking about?
I think it was a bunch of things. Partly it was protecting the energy of the project,
Okay.
It's still in those early stages, and I felt like sharing it too soon could expose it to unnecessary criticism or influence.
Yeah, like you needed that safe space for it to grow before letting other people in.
Exactly. And on a deeper level, I realized I wasn't ready to share it with that specific person.
Okay.
Their writing style, their whole perspective was so different from mine.
Hmm.
And I just felt like their feedback, while it would come from a good place, might not really align with my vision for the book.
So even at that stage, it was about finding the right audience for your work.
Absolutely. It's like choosing the right soil for a seed to sprout.
I love that.
Not every environment helps things grow.
And it reminds me of how this source talks about Sam, who learns a tough lesson about protecting their insights.
Right.
It's framed as a warning, but what exactly did Sam do wrong?
Sam's mistake was sharing their spiritual experiences with people who weren't ready to hear them. They
Okay.
were met with, like, ridicule and disbelief, which really shook their confidence and made them start doubting their own path.
Yeah, that's got to be rough. So how do you navigate that? How do you know when someone's ready for what you have to share, especially when it's something as personal as your spiritual journey?
There's no easy answer. I don't think it's about, like, checking off a list of qualities.
Right.
It's more about building that sense of discernment, an intuition that comes from paying attention to your own inner wisdom and the energy of the other person.
So trusting your gut.
Exactly. Listen to those subtle cues, those whispers of intuition that tell you whether or not it's safe to open up.
You know, this is making me think about social media. There's all this pressure to share every detail of our lives, every thought, every win. And this source is almost like an antidote to that. It's encouraging us to be pickier about what we put out there.
I think that's such an important point. This source really challenges that idea that sharing more is always good.
Yeah.
It makes us consider the potential downsides of putting ourselves out there too much, especially with things that are so personal or sacred.
Right. It's like saying not everything needs to be a tweet.
Exactly.
Some things are meant to be treasured and protected,
Yep.
shared only with those who really get it.
It's about creating a sacred space for our dreams, for our hopes, for our spiritual experiences.
But it doesn't mean we have to become hermits, right?
Of course not.
There's still value in connecting with people, sharing our stories, especially when it comes to like inspiring each other.
Absolutely. It's about finding that balance. It's not about isolation, but about choosing those connections wisely.
So how do we find that balance? How do we protect our own energy and still want to connect and share with others?
It starts with recognizing that we have a choice.
Okay.
We don't have to tell everyone everything. We can be careful on who we let into that inner circle, and we can think about what we choose to share with the world.
It's like setting boundaries,
Exactly.
not just in our real lives, but online and even in our spiritual lives.
It's about honoring ourselves and our own journey by choosing to share in a way that feels true and good.
Okay, so we've talked about being discerning about sharing, but what about asking for help? This source says to be careful about sharing our struggles too openly,
Yeah.
especially when we're in the middle of them.
Right.
But don't we need to reach out when things get tough?
Of course, we're not meant to do this alone, but I think the point here is that not all support is the same.
Okay.
Just like we have to be careful about who we share our dreams with, we have to be mindful of who we turn to when we're struggling.
So it's not just venting to anyone, it's about carefully choosing our support system.
Exactly. It's about finding those people who can just be there with us
Okay.
without judgment, who can offer empathy and understanding without trying to fix us or give advice we didn't ask for.
And maybe some challenges are best faced alone, at least at first.
Yeah.
Maybe there's a time for thinking and processing before we reach out for help.
There's wisdom in that. Sometimes the answers we're looking for are already inside us. We just have to make space to hear them.
This whole idea of creating space for our dreams, our struggles, our spiritual experiences, it seems to be a theme here. It's like saying, you deserve a sanctuary, a place where you can just be you without judgment or pressure.
That's a great way to put it, and I think it's something a lot of us crave,
Yeah.
especially in a world that can feel so chaotic and demanding.
So we've covered a lot, the idea of the chosen one, the 9 secrets, and we've talked about being smart about who we share with and ask for help from. But what does it all mean for the listener? How can they use these ideas in their own lives, whether or not they feel like a chosen one?
That's the big question, isn't it, I think? It starts with self-reflection.
So, like, taking some quiet time to figure out what really matters to us?
Exactly. What are those deep aspirations? Where do you feel that pull, that sense of purpose? And what steps can you take to move towards it? Even small ones.
Okay, so first we got to get clear on our own goals, our dreams.
Right.
But then this whole secrecy thing, how do we balance that with actually getting things done in the world?
It's not about hiding, it's about intention.
Okay.
Think of it like this. You're working on this amazing project.
Mm-hmm.
Would you share a rough draft with everyone or wait till it's polished and ready?
Good point. I tend to want feedback early on, but maybe there's a time for working alone, too.
Right.
You need that space for the idea to form before you get everyone else's opinions in the mix.
Exactly. And as you're working, you might start to think about who you do want to share it with, whose feedback would actually be valuable, who really gets your vision.
It's like that saying, don't cast your pearls before swine.
Yeah.
You got to protect your creative energy.
Absolutely. It's about understanding that not every environment is supportive. Just like a seed needs the right soil and light to grow, our dreams need a nurturing space to develop.
And maybe that means being more careful about who we let into that space, in real life and online.
Hmm.
This whole deep dive has me rethinking how much I share on social media.
It's so easy to get caught in that loop of constantly putting our lives out there.
Yeah.
But this source, it encourages us to step back and ask,
Yep.
what do I really need to share? And who benefits from hearing it?
And maybe even who could this actually hurt? Like, if you're going through something really tough, maybe posting about it everywhere isn't the best idea.
Right, being vulnerable is powerful, but it's also something to handle carefully.
Mm-hmm.
Sharing our struggles can be really healing, but only if we choose the right people to open up to, those who can offer real support and get it.
This reminds me of when I was making a big career change. I almost posted about it online, but something told me not to. I ended up talking to a few close friends instead.
Yeah.
And their support was huge. Looking back, I'm so glad I didn't put my whole journey out there for everyone to see.
It takes guts to resist sharing everything, especially when we live in a world that often rewards oversharing. But it's wise to recognize that some things are better kept private, at least until we've had time to understand them and figure out what they mean.
You know, this source talks a lot about secrecy,
Yeah.
but I'm seeing it's not really about keeping everything hidden forever.
Yeah.
It's more about choosing when and how to share in a way that feels real and good.
It's about recognizing that we have that choice. We can decide when and with whom to share our experiences, our insights, even our vulnerabilities.
Okay, so last question. This source has given us a lot to think about with protecting our dreams and being careful who we share with, but what about those times when we do want to put our work out there?
Hmm.
When we want to inspire others or make a difference, how do we do that with all this talk of secrecy?
That's where the art of discernment comes in.
Okay.
It's about finding that balance between honoring your own path and seeing when sharing can benefit others.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes the most powerful stories are the ones told with a mix of honesty and wisdom, being real and intentional.
So it's not all or nothing. There's a time for keeping things close, a time for sharing, and everything in between.
Exactly. And it's a process of learning as we grow and change. Our understanding of what to share and when will probably change too.
This whole deep dive has been so eye-opening. It's really made me think about how I share and ask for support, and I hope it's done the same for you listening.
It's been great exploring this with you.
Before we go, one last thought. This source gave us 9 secrets for protecting the chosen one's journey, but what if we flip that idea? What if the real challenge isn't keeping things hidden, but knowing when to share our gifts and experiences to inspire and lift others up? Something to think about as you continue on your own path. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.